a gun in the face.
Then all of a sudden, they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
Started 2 years of horror for an American in Venezuela.
They said, you need to give us your phone and get ready because you're coming with us.
I'm Becky Bruce, and I spent a year researching and piecing together Josh and Tammy Holt's story about their ordeal in a notorious prison.
That's when everything started to turn bad. We had another pound on the door. Boom, boom, boom. And there was the police once again.
You can binge all of the episodes of Hope in Darkness on kslpodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
In today's episode of Project Recovery,
I started going through the withdrawals. I started going through the bad experiences, the bad trips, I guess. And
do you feel like that was due to PTSD coming up from not just Afghanistan, but your childhood?
So your inspiration comes from your trials and tribulations?
Oh, most definitely.
Make sure you listen to the end. Find us on Facebook at Project Recovery. We'll have that and much more coming up. Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. But more importantly, Dr. Matt.
You know what? It's about recovery, Casey.
That's right. I just wanted to shake it up a little bit.
I was paying attention.
Yeah, see, because you said you went to bed last night at 1:30. You got up at 5:30. You've been a little punch drunk.
Yep. I had a lot to do. I had some reports to write this morning, so I got up and did that.
But what did you spend the majority of your time on? Was it on the reports or watching Monty Python?
This morning or last night?
Both.
This morning was all work. Last night I watched the documentary, the Monty Python documentary called The Truth. It's on Netflix right now.
And I think a lot of people are binging and looking for other stuffed ways to entertain themselves.
Well, for sure. I mean, I think that in COVID, people are turning to more of that sort of entertainment, less of the going out and doing things stuff. But there's a problem. It's a little addicting, like the whole binge watching thing.
How many times?
I've tried to explain to my kids, like, when you watch Miami Vice,
you had to wait a week.
You had to wait a whole week.
Yeah.
And if you missed it, then you missed it.
I binged Game of Thrones right when I got out of rehab. Yeah. In probably 3 months. Well, no, 3 weeks. I mean,
that would be a tough one to binge because that's a lot of content.
I didn't have a license.
So you didn't have any place to go.
I didn't have anywhere to go. I remember my girlfriend was like, hey, you could do some work around the house. Yeah. And I was like,
well, I found that, like, I'm going to start splitting my binge watching into an analogy of, like, food. Mm-hmm. Some of it, like, if you're just watching The Office over and over again or Parks and Rec, that's just like popcorn. That's just like nothing good for you. And then you have some decent quality shows. That's like having a meal. And then you watch a really good documentary where you learn something. That's like meat and potatoes.
Steak.
Yeah. So I last night, I'm not sure Monty Python qualifies as meat and potatoes, but it was close. It was interesting. If people are fans, that I would say watch that documentary. You learn a lot about, like, sort of the haphazard way those guys became famous and created some funny stuff.
And I love that. And the reason I'm acting like I don't know what you just said is because I was looking for my phone because our guest today is Ryan, and I wanted to get his last name, but I'm going to screw it up. But he's a musician. He's a veteran. He's a lot of things, but he's also an addict. And so, Ryan, what's your last name?
Stream.
Dang it.
Pretty close.
That wasn't hard.
I thought it was Stringham.
Stringham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stream.
Both start with an S. That was close.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Casey. I'm with you on that. I have a hard time saying names correctly, even after people have told me, I think.
You've got to associate it with something.
Right. Yeah,
so I think of Matt Woolly Mammoth, his hair. And that's how I remember you.
I think Matt Damon.
Ooh, Matt Damon.
Okay, I'll take that one. Both are pretty good.
Matt Woolly's the exact opposite of Matt Damon.
Woolly Mammoth has been a nickname since I was 2, so I
wasn't even creative, huh?
Not really.
They called you the Mammoth.
No, it was more just making fun of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, let's find out a little bit about your story. Now, the crazy thing is that I was looking for a guest this week because we had somebody back out.
Yeah.
And I reached out on Facebook and I talked to some people, and your name kept popping up. They're like, you gotta meet this kid. He's amazing. He's a motivational speaker. He does all these great things, and we're gonna find out more about that at the end of it. But I also looked at some of your music, and your music is touching and really speaks to the recovery community.
Appreciate it.
So before we get to any of that, where does the story of Ryan begin?
You know, it's a very unique story. Casey, Matt, thank you for having me on. When I was young, my brothers and I, we slept some nights in a homeless shelter. We stayed in foster care homes. One by one, we were taken away from each other, lost, alone, scared, anything you could feel as a child. I could assure you that my brothers and I, we felt that.
How many brothers did you have?
3 brothers, one that was just born and then 2 older ones.
How do you guys find yourself in a situation of being that young, living homeless and sleeping in shelters?
I think the thing with little kids is a lot of times when you are poor, you realize that it doesn't matter. You could have fun, right? It's when I was in Afghanistan and I was thinking so much about my life and what was going on in the war zone when I feel like it really affected me. But then throughout my life, I guess I could see where it also has affected me.
How did that happen, though? Like, what city were you homeless in growing up?
Well, I'll get to that story because it's pretty cool. We were homeless. We lived in a homeless shelter in Helper, Utah. We were homeless at first in Provo and slept in a garage through the wintertime, had the blankets and space heaters, warm the cold concrete floor. But, you know, we had parents that loved us, like most parents, I hope, right? I mean, there's some parents that, yeah, they do have those addictions and they're so far gone. I don't think my parents were so far gone. They did love us. I do remember that.
Were they addicts?
They were addicts, yes.
And so they were just trying to do the best they can with their addiction and their situation and having 3 young kids.
Absolutely, yeah. And we had that love from our mother, but she was also trying to find love after her and my dad were separated or split up. You know, I was born in L.A. We were living in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Fontana area. And my dad actually did some stuff that, well, my mom ended up leaving to censor some stuff out. And so we were in Colorado for a little while. And
do you remember that time in Los Angeles?
no, not in Los Angeles, but I remember when we got to Colorado. I remember my mom, she got arrested for, I'm not sure what, but I remember I escaped from the babysitter's house and I ran down the back alley and I got to the jail and I started to scream, Mom, Mom, you know, and finally my mom, she came to the window and can you imagine this 4 or 5-year-old boy? I'm just looking up at the window trying to find my mom who's gone. And, you know, my mom, she tells me that she loves me and she starts crying and snaps my fingers and tells me to go home. You know, now that I'm older, I look at that and I wonder why my mother was crying. And now that we're older, we understand choices. And we understand that there are good things that happen and bad things that happen. My mom was making some bad choices, and so bad things were happening to her. But I can't imagine my little girl that's 8 years old this week running all the way to the jail and yelling and crying for, Dad, where are you? I miss you, Dad. So
have you ever talked to your mom about
my mom,
what that was like for her?
My mom committed suicide when I was in the 9th grade. She had some addictions and obviously a broken heart. You know, the one thing about addictions that we don't that we don't realize why we're doing it, we think that it's a comfort. We think that it's going to block out everything that's going on, and it does for maybe a minute, but there's people when they're on substances, they do even crazier things that affect their future life. I think that all of us are just using these things to be in a little shelter, and sadly, you know, she never got out of that shelter, and she lost her freedom in the end and her life.
So she committed suicide when you were in 9th grade. Where were you guys living then?
We were living with the Stream family in Huntington, Utah, Emery County, and this is where the story gets pretty amazing.
So tell me about it.
Okay, well, so we were in Colorado. My dad came to pick us up because my mom wasn't able to get back on her feet. So we drove in the back of a truck. My dad, he didn't have a vehicle. We drove in the back of the truck from Colorado through the canyon to Provo.
Wow.
When we got to Provo, we realized my dad had nothing. Nothing. I remember walking around Provo, burning my feet on the asphalt. But our dad was still kind. He was still loving, but he was making and doing things that weren't right. I remember taking naps under the Center Street Bridge, sleeping. I remember we got a car, and we parked the car at the Provo Park to sleep. And I remember kicking my dad's seat, said, Dad, please, I don't want to sleep here. There literally was homeless people sleeping on the other side of the sidewalk. We were able to sleep behind a family member's home. They had a house, and then they had a little garage thing that they made a house, and then in the back there was a little shack, little garage shelter, however you want to describe it. But I went back and I looked at this. Before I tell the story, I want to make sure that I was right. This room was tiny. And we had space heaters and blankets that warmed the floor during the wintertime.
How long did you... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so that's... I mean, I'm just kind of curious about this progression from California to Colorado to Provo. So it sounds like your dad had family in Provo, and that's why he brought you kids there. Yeah. And was he active in his addiction at that time?
I was a little too young, but I did see my dad get arrested multiple times, so I'm sure. Yeah, I would imagine. I knew he was a heavy drinker. And
is your dad still living?
Yeah, it's real funny. So the guy that I thought was my dad is probably not even my dad. My uncle is possibly my dad.
Okay,
I could see the bell spinning,
Yeah. Well, family dynamics can be a little
to clarify,
tricky.
My dad, or who I thought was my dad, we're still going to do a test. We're kind of on that now.
So he's not sure either.
I look just like him. It's kind of crazy. Act just like him. Look like him. It's like the puzzle pieces right there, but we don't know, And
you could probably just go to whatever the Me and 23, whatever that.
Do a genetic test.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a paternity test, and they do that just between the two of you, and they can match and see if he's really your biological
And he's offered to
father.
do that, I think, with just his schedule, my schedule, and I got adopted. I have parents that raised me, that loved me, that adored me. You know what I mean? So I would like to know. I'd like to know because I'm writing a book, and I'd like to be able to put all that in. When I was 17 years old, and he told me, it was kind of like, whoa, no way. That's why we look the same, but. My mom's husband, or if they were split up at the time, he wasn't good to her. They only fueled each other's fires. And so I don't know if he was gone or prison or what. I've heard different stories, but my mom fell in love with his brother. And I don't judge my mom at all. As a woman or as a man, we want acceptance. That's the number one thing people want. If you're not getting acceptance or kindness from other people, what do we usually do?
We search for it.
We search for it, and sometimes we get addicted.
Yeah.
We fall into the categories of making good choices and bad choices based off the people that we surround ourselves with.
So when did you get adopted?
I was in the second grade, man. I remember coming in the classroom, throwing my backpack down and yelling, I'm adopted. But when we were sleeping through the wintertime, it must have been springtime, there was a police officer that arrested my dad. And when he got out of jail, we just packed our stuff in this blue car, I believe. Maybe I'm mixing. But anyways, we packed ourselves in a car, and we started to drive through Spanish Fort Canyon. And we had nowhere to live. So there was a homeless shelter in Helper. And, man, I remember when we were at the homeless shelter, my brothers and I, we would wake up early in the morning, man, and we would walk down the stairs, and we would look behind corners, and we would steal food from the kitchen. And I remember walking up and down the streets. There was a little gas station close by, but we would ask people if they had food or candy. And I still remember 2 old men out in front of the homeless shelter that they gave us a box of raisins. Man, and I just remember that feeling as a little kid of somebody that has something that I wanted and them being kind enough to give it to me. That right there is a moment that has fueled my fire for the rest of my life.
In what way?
Just being kind, serving, loving, and giving. I mean, something as you'll hear when I was 6 years old, you'll hear about my best gift I've ever been given, and then you'll see how that little gift transpired into future things that I would be able to do because of that just little seed and act of kindness.
So you got adopted in second grade, super stoked.
Oh, yeah.
And then where does your life go from there?
Well, after I got adopted, my mom, she'd come visit us every 6 months, and we would go to Colorado to visit my mom. My parents now, Steve and Carol Ann, they had an open adoption. They thought it was very important, and it is, to know who our biological parents were.
And they felt comfortable letting you
Yeah.
go on road trips with your mom?
Well, they would be with us.
Oh, they went
would be
along.
with us,
Okay.
yes. But whenever I'd play basketball in Colorado, they would invite her. I mean, I have amazing parents, and you're going to hear how many kids they raised.
No, go ahead. I'm just waiting for the story,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm excited, too. I love this story. So one time we were down in Colorado, and my mother, she got in trouble. And she had one more son, Joey. And Joey would be all over with, my mom. I remember she was dating somebody in New Jersey and Florida. She was just trying to find love. And she couldn't find it, man. And we were down in Colorado, and my mother told Caroline and Steve, I'm never going to be able to give Joey the life that you have given my other boys. My mother had gotten in trouble, and she was wondering if the Streams could take my little brother home. The Stream family already had 7 kids of their own, 6 girls and 1 boy, and they just...
Biological.
And then they adopted me and my brothers, and then went down and adopted my other little brother. But, when we were in foster care, I remember a police officer, he knocked on the door. And it was when we watched my dad get arrested. Okay, let me back up. We watched our dad get arrested. We were living in Huntington, Utah. And there's this man. He knocked on the door, and his name was Steve Stream. And Steve Stream, he noticed, man, we looked rough. Our hair was long. We were washing our clothes in the bathtub. And a couple days later, that man, Steve Stream, brought over a brand new washer and dryer so we could wash clothes. And he said, we didn't know how to read. We didn't know how to write. We were so far behind. And he said, bring your kids over to my home. My wife will teach them how to read and write. My mom, she owned the daycare and preschool in the town. Anyways, to make the story short, we ended up going back to the homeless shelter to Price to eat. We were in Price for some reason. My dad, he got drunk. He was using some substances. Whatever it was, he started to punch the windshield and the side windows until they started to crack. And he started to yell and shout that devils were inside of our car. Now, please mind that my biological dad, he's changed his life. He's a nice man. He's good. But let's rewind that these are some choices that he has made, and he's been forgiven, and we love him. But a police officer pulled us over. And I remember I was so sick and tired of seeing my dad, man. I was tired of seeing the police take him away. I jumped out of the vehicle, and I ran over to the cop, and I told the cop that I knew karate. But obviously I didn't know karate or enough. So he put us three ninjas back into the back seat of his patrol car, and we watched our dad. We watched him. That was the last time those red and blue lights disappeared, and he was gone. We didn't see him until court years later. Anyways, the police officer said, you're going to be okay. And he said that there was a family that was going to take us in, right, a foster care. I remember that night, man, I was crying. I had no mom, no little brother, no dad. I just watched my dad get taken away. But not too long after that, a police officer came and knocked on the door and said that he was going to take our brother away. And again, I found myself crying on the same floor of that foster home. I was sad. We had nobody, and my oldest brother put a blanket around me, and we cried together. Everything will be okay. Weeks later, there was a police officer that came back to the house. And I remember having so much anxiety when the lady told us that there was another police officer coming. I remember that.
I get that same anxiety.
Yeah, I think that's universal.
Yeah. Like, oh, man.
Yeah. Just that feeling of something bad's going to happen, And anyways, the police officer, he knocked on the door and opened up the door. And before he could even get anything out of his mouth, we saw in the backseat of that cop car my brother Jesse. And he's trying to get out of the backseat of the cop car, but like you two probably, no, just kidding. You can't get out of the backseat of a cop car.
I know that.
Casey knows.
Yeah.
You can't. And he was trying, and I ran over. We opened up the door, and we hugged and laughed. And the police officer said, there's a family that wants to take you in and keep you guys together. And that was the Stream family. So the Stream family, we had 13 in my family.
You're listening to Ryan Stream's story of addiction, of losing his parents at a young age, a foster family stepping up to take them all in. We're going to find out more about that in just a few seconds. You're listening to Project Recovery.
2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
So a police officer comes to the door, and not only is he not going to take one of your brothers, he's giving one of your brothers back.
Absolutely. Bringing us all together and giving us the ride to Emery County, Huntington, Utah, to be together forever.
And so you show up there, and life seems to be going pretty good for you guys then.
Yeah, we had parents that loved us. I even remember my 6th birthday, June 2nd, one of the best days ever, right? I got one of the best gifts I've ever been given. I got a brand new outfit and a pair of light-up shoes. Man,
oh
dude.
Yeah.
I can still see them lighting up.
The light-up kicks. That's you're living large there.
Oh, absolutely, man. I just kind of thought the spoiled kids had those, the rich kids. And my mom, she did what she could. She always made sure we had gifts for Christmas. She did, and she was an excellent mother, but she had and made choices that affected her whole family.
So everything goes pretty good for your formidable years, right? I guess growing up there.
I was breaking track records. I was practicing 200 shots of basketball every day. My growth spurt stopped in about the 6th grade, so I didn't get to go to the NBA like I would have wanted. But I had parents, man, they loved us. But later on in life, I realized that I just felt disconnected. And my parents, they loved us, man, they loved us. But it was, deep down, there was always that, where do I belong? Like, I remember when I was younger, I scrubbed my skin because I thought there would be white under my skin. I just want to be the same color as my family. And, they took us in, and they did the best they could. And sadly, they had some late-night calls.
What was that like coming in? You're obviously telling the part of the story where you were grateful and appreciative, and obviously this family's wonderful, but they already had a bunch of kids.
Absolutely.
And I've spoken to lots of folks who've been in similar situations where even if all the intentions of the new siblings and the parents, the adoptive parents, are positive, and it sounds like they were in your case, that can be kind of tough.
Absolutely.
Like, where do you fit in that family? Was that ever a struggle for you?
My mom, she was doing daycare and preschool at the time, and she had about 36 kids coming.
She really liked kids.
She loved kids.
I'm trying to do the math on that. You got like 30 preschool daycare kids.
7 of your own.
You got 7 of your own, and then you
Plus
adopt
4
3
more.
more. Wow, that's a
Plus
lot of
4
kids.
more that they adopted.
That's a lot. I think you should have that many kids, Casey.
Oh, man, I don't know about that.
I think you'd do it.
I don't think I could handle it. I'm working hard on 3. So at 17, did you ever experiment with alcohol or drugs?
I snuck it a few times in high school, but I kind of feel like I was pretty squared away. Like I said, I wanted to go to the NBA, and sadly that didn't happen, so I wanted to join the military. I wanted to, like most military members, I think it's safe to say they wanted to be a Ranger in the Special Forces. It's a very competitive and exciting, outgoing lifestyle.
Thrilling, high adventure,
Yeah.
high risk, all that stuff.
Yeah, I was trying to find some words to say right there, but words are hard for me sometimes.
At 17, you decide that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I went into my parents' room and I said I would like to join the military, and they, no, I don't think so. So I remember I walked down to my room and I laid on my bed and I just thought, no, like I'm going to join the military.
What was their plan for you, by the way?
Oh, I just, my parents, they had to start working at a young age. I was building houses, helping build houses when I was 11 years old, a family friend. We were working, my parents, you were busy playing sports, piano lessons, dance lessons, singing lessons. You were very busy. Church on Sundays. My parents were active. We were up early chopping weeds for an hour every day, and now every person in my family is very successful because my parents ran a tight ship.
Well, yeah, I think you'd have to with 40 kids in the house or whatever it was.
The schedule's very important.
Well, schedule is important. I know, and in all honesty, successful parents know how to schedule kids and give them those experiences. But did they have a vision for your future, like beyond? Once you were out of the house, you're 18, there you are 17 saying, I want to go to the military. And they're like, yeah, no. And so what did they verbalize a hope? Like, did they push you in a certain direction?
We were a religious family. We believe in the LDS religion. And I think as parents, they teach you what is right. And they would like for you to go teach the gospel.
So they wanted you to be a missionary?
I would imagine so, yes. I had 2 brothers that did that. But I was one of the wild ones that kind of rebelled and
But you had your heart set on
But they weren't
something.
trying to tell you
Yes.
to go to college and be a lawyer or
I don't
something
think
like
my parents,
that.
No, my dad, he knew I wanted to be in the NBA my whole life, and I think
Okay.
they kind of cheered me on for greatness. And
Did they
hoped for
push
the
you
best.
for like college scholarships, that kind of stuff?
No, we stayed pretty busy. If we weren't doing sports, we were already working. I think they understood we were go-getters from when we were young.
So they just knew military. They were not hoping that life for you.
Yeah, yep.
Because I think that's a perfect example of an old man and a young man having a conversation, right? So the young man is like, he sees the adventure, the Army Ranger, jumping out of airplanes, doing all that. The old man sees maybe more the reality of what can happen to a person who's in the military.
Well, the effects, the PTSD afterwards, the traveling, the possibility of getting injuries or
losing your life, but
Absolutely.
also seeing and doing things that maybe aren't part of that romantic vision when you're
Absolutely.
17, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you did sign up at 17.
I did, man. I ended up signing up at 17, and I was fast. When I was 12 years old, I ran a 5:17 mile, I believe. 5:17 mile, and I ended to have blood. Thank you. I had blood clots in my legs, and they were going to amputate my leg, and so I had a whole week of a 9-inch muscle ripped out of my leg, and I knew they were going to cut my leg off. And but I knew that wasn't going to slow me down. Right, the day I got out of the hospital, I went out and started riding my bike, showing my mom, "Hey, I'm good." And ended up wrestling that year, and the next year I broke another track record. And I was the homecoming king in a small town. I just started winning talent finds playing the piano. And
Are you feeling worse and worse about yourself as you listen to this?
But I'm impressed. I mean, this guy's
he's tearing it up.
A lot of people want to be a triple threat.
Yeah.
But I mean, this guy's a quadruple threat, or
At least I think there were more than that.
Pentathreat.
Yeah,
is that a thing?
I think it is. Sure.
Okay. So
surrounded by good people. That's what it was, man.
That helps.
And I like that. And so when you get into the military, you excel there?
Yeah, I went to basic training, and I was the PT stud. I was, at that time, I was running like an 11:24 2-mile. Just out of I can't remember exactly how much there were, a ton of guys. I was the most fit. So I got there was a few honor grads, and I was one of them for the physically fit. And I had the opportunity to go to airborne school and jump out of airplanes.
Wow.
And I turned it down because I had a girlfriend. I did not want to be away from home for another month. Just young and dumb, man.
How many dreams have girlfriends interrupted? A lot.
Wars have been started.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your military experience.
So I was an E2, and I got promoted to an E3 on the spot.
We don't know what that is. What's an E3?
So you start out as nothing, and then you go to a private, so you just ranks,
So
moving up
what
the
does
rank.
E stand for?
Enlisted.
Oh, enlisted. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So out of our whole battalion, we had a run through the mountains, and I would remember my sergeant Allred. We were all running together, and he looked at me, and he knew I wanted to go, so he just said, "Stream, go." And I beat the second place person by 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and anyways, I got promoted on the spot by the sergeant major on the base and the colonel. My sergeant took me in. They promoted me on the spot.
Wow.
So that was pretty awesome. So I kind of was throwing around I want to go to selections. I want to do, I felt like physically, and I don't know, I haven't went through the school, and bless those Rangers and Special Forces. Those guys are the NBA athletes of the Army. They're more than that. They really are more than that. But you want to know, I didn't do it. I was one of the people that I would have liked to have done it, but guess what? I didn't do it. And I think a big problem is maybe it was fear, but I started to mess around with drugs.
And
So
what
that's kinda
was your
what killed
DOC?
me.
What was your drug of choice?
I started out pretty good with ecstasy and, smoking a little bit of pot. And then I started smoking some Oxycontin off tinfoils. And sorry, Mom. I don't think we need to go down the list. But, you get...
So that was introduced to you in the military. So while you're having...
So the military, they were pretty dang good. I was in the National Guard, so I would do the weekends and be gone for a couple months at a time. I was working in the coal mine. Man, I got a $20,000 sign-on bonus. I was working. I just got back from basic training. I had like $6,000-$7,000 in the bank. Received my $20,000 sign-on bonus, and I was going to school right when I got back. I mean, I had the Camaro with the lights, the TVs, the Nintendo inside, the 2002 limited edition
Wait.
orange.
You had a Nintendo inside your Camaro?
Oh yeah.
He's living large.
Oh,
Wow.
man.
Wow.
I mean, but, $80,000, $90,000. I mean, because you think the 6 I had in, the $20,000 sign-on bonus, plus the $25 an hour in the coal mine, $80,000, $90,000
Yeah.
is what I was making when I was
That's big
18
money
years
for a
old.
kid, yeah.
Oh, man. And, I spoiled my girlfriend. I went up north a lot. Me and my buddies hung out. And then, you just that one time, man. You just, I'll just take this ecstasy pill one time.
So your friends, so these buddies, hanging out with your buddies, that's where that
I sad to say, I
You don't
think
want
I
to
was,
rat anybody out.
I think
do you?
I was probably the main one, man. And
Oh, was
it
you?
hurts to say.
Okay.
I'm the one that was kind of the most daring. And, I ran into one of my friends actually yesterday at the mall, and he was one that he never stopped, man. It was kind of heartbreaking to see the ankle bracelet on him, and one of my best friends overdosed and died. And, it's sad. And I looked at my little girl, and I said, Nix, Daddy could have been like that, baby girl. That's why you always make good choices, And even I'm still a human. I still make bad choices. I'm not perfect, but I understand that if you start down that path, it's a snowball effect, man. It is one time.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, it's that one time. And I bet the people in the community looked up to you. The homecoming king, making great money, breaking records, multi-talented. And so people looked up to you. And I could see, because once you've walked in here, your demeanor has been so outgoing. But once you had to say that, I could tell that really hurt you. But that's the choices we make. We're going to find out more about that in just a few seconds. You're listening to Project Recovery, a KSL podcast. So, because we don't want to hurt your mom or break her heart, you find yourself with a drug addiction. And how often are you using?
Oh man, it started out with an every weekend, and then it started with losing my job, and then whenever I can get it, man. I remember I'd do the drugs by myself and go sit in the hot tub. You know, it got to the point where people in the military, man, I can guarantee they knew it. I would come home, I would go on the military base one time with paint in my hair from a party, and my lieutenant made me shave my hair. And, you know, I started going through the withdrawals. You know, I started going through the bad experiences, the bad trips, I guess. And my dad now, he's a judge, and he was a police officer at the time. I called my parents twice. And one time, I was tripping so bad, I told my mom and dad that someone was trying to kill me. In the middle of the night, my mom's crying, my dad's trying to give me some advice, you know, and I would call my sister, and, you know, it got to the point I was dirty, man. I was dirty, and I would have never have gone to war twice. I would have never have been doing what I'm doing right now. I would have been lost. I was dirty, and I was on the military base, and it was my turn to take a urinalysis test, or a piss test for a more unedited version. And, man, I remember peeing in that cup and just, please, Lord, I know I did wrong. You know what I mean? Going through where are you at, Satan? You help me get here, you little sucker.
Yeah.
And they mixed up my Social Security number. So I guess they had to throw it out or something. But I said, hey, my Social Security number is wrong on here. Or, you know, I don't know the rules or the regulations to that, but it was kind of like I got lucky. And my little brother, amazing kid, you know, he started to use. And I said, I don't want to say his name, but I said, hey, man, what are you doing? And he said, you do the same thing. And as a big brother, man, that, you know, I love my little brother, you know, and hearing that from him, it broke me. And I was driving the car that the bank was looking for. I had to pay back the courts over $25,000 to $30,000. I got sued. I was in jail multiple times.
What did you get sued for?
Oh, hit and run with no insurance. I had that was an assault on the police. I didn't get sued for the assault on the police officer, but I swear I didn't do it, you know, one of those stories. But, you know, I was drunk, so really I'm not sure. A lot of them were...
Obviously, your decisions, like your parents in the past, bad decisions are coming back to haunt you.
And it does, man. It's a 5-year rule.
And bad things are happening.
Absolutely.
And so you find yourself in desperate, dark situations.
Yeah, quitting the coal mine with nothing, man. I just wanted to go play. So I quit the coal mine, and I was living on my friends' couches. Shout out to Andrew Gomez, man. I love you, kid.
And this is the guy that had the Camaro with the Nintendo in the back.
Oh, man.
And now you're couch surfing.
Yeah, couch surfing, yeah. Breaking into apartments and sleeping in them, and sleeping in my car. Then I got linked up with my uncle, who's possibly my dad, and he let me stay with him for a little bit, but I still wanted to go out. Man, I would still go out when I was trying to work with him, and I remember I would be on empty. My car light would be on empty, almost. And I'd be driving to Salt Lake when it hit empty, and I would use the $25 that I had, and that's all I would had, to buy some ecstasy pills, some speed, whatever I can get my hands on, and just, man, dress up and acted like I was this nice, rich kid that girls would love, you know? And then at the end of the night, I'd freaking get in my car, and I would drive home on drugs or sometimes on alcohol. I remember falling asleep on it. Man, I could have easily killed somebody. You know, I could have... You're not thinking straight, and you're thinking you're using those drugs. You know, I was in a bad spot, man. I was almost kicked out of the military. I lost my job. I failed out of college probably 5 different times. I just got my degree this last semester. It took 10 years. A lot of people, you know, take 10 years. They're doctors. Fortunately, it was just an associate's degree.
Well, congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
you, man.
So let's get back on point. They mix up your Social Security number so you don't get kicked out of the military.
Yeah.
And so... At one point, you had to stop or you wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
What does your rock bottom look like?
Well, my little brother telling me that I did it. Well, let me tell you. So I was couch surfing at this time, and there was a unit that was going to Afghanistan. And I understood if I kept doing this, man, I'm done. You know, my friends, they started to get picked up, going to prison. Heck, one time there was like 4 of us in jail at the same time. You know, and... It just came to the point where it was either I'm going to die, I'm going to be like my mom and dad, if I didn't change. And so I asked this unit that was going to Afghanistan. I said, "Hey, could I go to Afghanistan?" I asked one of the sergeants. He said, "No, man, they're not going to let you go because you know you've gotten in a lot of trouble." And you know the military doesn't like people that cause problems. You're the military. you're tough, you're strong, and you represent your state, your town, and your community, and your country. And anyways, I went to different courts, and I begged and I pleaded, please let me go to Afghanistan. And I was in Sandy, which is amazing because I actually spoke for this court this last year. I was in Sandy. I was in the court, and I think it was a traffic violation, assault on a police officer. There was a couple different things. And I just said to the judge, I said, please, judge, like I need to escape my surroundings and go to Afghanistan. That judge got up, walked down. He gave me a hug, and he said, you're going to go to Afghanistan. We ended up working out payment plans, and he gave me a hug and said, you're going to learn more in Afghanistan than you could ever learn while you're here. And I was able to speak for that judges conference this last year. So he wasn't there, but people that work with him.
So he sends you to Afghanistan. You're going to escape your surroundings and your current situation.
Absolutely.
So you basically detoxed.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody knew you were.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my friends, there was me and my one friend, we would get mad at each other, you know. Andrew and I, we were pretty dang close, and Van and Meeks and Shecky, and we would help each other, man. You know, we all knew that this wasn't the life that we wanted to. So when one of us would slip up, it'd be like, dude, what are you doing? You know, it'd be the head shake, like disappointment, you know. And but when I decided I wanted to go to the military, it was when it got to that point. You know, I remember getting in the mirror, ripping out my earrings. I went through all those stages, man. Sleepless nights, almost demon attacks, I guess you can say. But when you make your mind up, if you're an addict, if you make your mind up, and if you can find something else that you're addicted to, mine was lifting. When you could find something else that can change your whole mindset, the power of positive thinking, man, that could work for addicts, that could work for homeless people, that could work for anybody. You just have to surround yourself with good people and have a plan.
So you do your first tour over in Afghanistan. When you come back, were you worried you slip up and go back to the old ways?
I started drinking pretty heavy, man. I was lucky to have found my wife. But, you know, when you go to war, and there's a lot of military people that they have had it a lot worse than me. I'm not saying I had it worse than anybody because I didn't. But, you know, my lieutenant, he found me outside crying one time. There was a round. Now, they did not die. 23 of the 32 members around that amount were hit with an IED. Now, the military vehicles that we had, they were shaped like a V, so they're able to withstand an IED blast. But obviously, they still blow the vehicle up. And one of our sergeants was killed. And I thought it was my best friend that I went to Afghanistan with, man, the kid I was in high school with. And so it was really an awakening, you know, like, holy cow, this is real. And I went outside, man, and I cried on a bench, and my lieutenant found me, and that's when the PTSD. So anyways, to fast forward, you know, when you're training to go to the military, you're training to fight, you're on edge. You know, even at the park last night, you know, I thought some guy was doing something weird. I'm telling my wife, you know what I mean? It's just, you never really lose that.
Become kind of hyper vigilant about your surroundings. Yeah,
absolutely. A little more cautious and aware, and even if there's nothing else going on, your brain's still moving, man. And
so you get back from your first tour, and you say you're drinking a little much.
Yeah, a lot heavy, man. Yeah, and fighting, I would get in an unbelievable. I almost couldn't wait for someone to fight me. I remember throwing over bar tables at bars. I was just losing
angry.
It. I was angry.
Do you feel like that was due to PTSD coming up from not just Afghanistan but your childhood, or was it something else?
I think with mixed, man. When we were in Afghanistan, there's sometimes you'd be in the vehicle and you couldn't open the door. I mean, the Taliban's always watching you. And so there's a lot of times you're in the vehicle for 20-something hours, you know, and you have a lot of time to think. And that's when I would write music and beatbox. But you really think about your life and your situations, and you see the little kids over there and the people that have nothing. And so I think my big thing when I got back is when people were rude to people, disrespected people, or even didn't listen, or were in my way on the freeway, man. I've had people pull over, and I was, you know, getting down, and one with a bat, and I mean, I was just losing it. And I met my wife at the time, and you know, she, bless her heart, I love her to death, but man, she's put up with a lot. You know, she had her opportunity to leave me multiple times, and dang,
she stayed.
Yeah, man.
I can see the love in your eyes. I can see the change in your demeanor. Then you have to go back to war.
Yeah. Yep. So I was home for about 11 months. I was going to school. You trying. But, I was still that guy that was pretty wild. But luckily I had some good friends, and we helped each other. And I met my wife again. I met her in state wrestling in about 2008, 2009, around that time. And, we just hit it off, man.
Your wife was a state wrestler?
She just know where the tough boys were, bro.
Just trying to put that together in my mind. I'm like, wow, she must be a tough chick.
Yeah.
You'd have never met his
man.
wife.
No, I wouldn't.
Hey, I'm taller.
I would have run away.
Yeah, dude, I'm taller than she is, though, just so we all know, man. For those listening, I'm about 5'4" with my shoes on. Look out.
So you meet your wife, you've got some good friends, but you're going back out. Now, were you as excited to go the second time as you were the first time?
Honestly, I felt like I didn't do enough, but it's almost like I needed the comfort of that, and I knew, truthfully, if I stayed, what about if I hit somebody with the bottle? What about if I really hurt somebody? I'm done, man. I was still, driving drunk a little and doing stupid things. And so I knew once again, like, I got to go back, And anyways, I don't know what it is with some military people. Sometimes you just feel like you need to do more, and maybe you didn't do enough, or maybe that's just my own perspective. But I was going to actually break up with my wife because I was going to go to Afghanistan. But I couldn't, man. I couldn't do it. I loved her. She was amazing, amazing. So I asked her if she would marry me, and 2 months after we were married, I got to go to Afghanistan. And when I got home, I had an 8-month-old little baby Nixon that I met for the first time, so that was really cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
How was your experience the second time over in Afghanistan?
A little different. I was actually around the same area. So our first mission was to find bombs placed in the route and to clear the route for all the other route people that were coming on the path, My second deployment, I got to do some little different things. I got to build. I got to train some A&A.
What's an A&A?
The Afghanistan Army.
Oh.
And those people have been at war forever, man. So I think, they should probably be teaching us a little bit, but we learned from each other. So a little different experiences, but it doesn't matter. I learned both sides, the small combat and the building, the building. So two different parts. But you know what? I learned that, it's kind of funny when you're in a combat and going out out into the country every day, you kind of, diss the people that stay on the base, fobbits. But then I realized that, those that are doing the logistics and the building and the everything back, you need them. Holy cow. And sometimes it was even harder work, but two different deployments, but very rewarding. But I definitely had to get some mental health when I got home and take care of some problems.
When you come back the second time, do you start drinking again?
Oh, yeah, man. Gosh dang it. I'm a champ, aren't I? Yeah, my wife. Gosh dang it, my wife. She's, again, amazing, man. She was sick of it. She was sick of my ways, and it came down to where she told me, she's like, I'm done. I'm leaving you. And I just said, please don't. Please, I'll change. Probably the same story, that we just try. Right?
I did, but she did leave.
Yeah, man, dang.
But that has happened, and those are the consequences that I have to deal with.
Absolutely.
We're talking to Ryan Streamer. We're listening to his story about addiction with his parents, his 2 tours in Afghanistan. Stick around, more to come right here on Project Recovery. Wife gives you an ultimatum.
Yeah.
And you say you're going to change. How do you change?
Well, I think the biggest part of change is learning that you have problems, and I'm still learning that, right? I'm still having to deal with that. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of problems and a lot of issues, so I started to go to the VA and started going to therapy, started taking different medications, started, taking what we were talking about earlier, what were we talking about, like where you calm down and
some moments, some meditation.
Yeah, some meditation.
Breaks,
yeah, doing some meditation. But really, man, playing music saved me. Because I was able to put my thoughts and my feelings into music. And when I realized the effect that it had on other people, and they were thanking me and wanting to take pictures with me and wanting my autograph, man, there's an addiction, my friend.
Casey knows all about that.
You want my autograph?
No.
Sign this cup for me, please.
Yeah. But so, I'm listening to your story, and it seems like you've been saved multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like the streamers at first saved you. It sounds like
military
saved you. Your wife saved you, and music saved you. Does that make you wonder if you were here for a certain reason?
Yeah, man, I think so. I wrecked a vehicle, roll over. I didn't have a scratch on me. There's many times where, one time my friends put me in the bathtub when I went unconscious because I was using too much drugs and drinking alcohol. Sorry, Mom. I don't think she ever knew about that. Yeah, man, I think that we all have a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do, what you make, but if you could even make somebody smile, you don't realize that you possibly may have saved that person's life.
So how did music really save you?
I think that music or doing what we love is like a therapy. It's an escape, right? And, my parents, they put me in piano lessons, but I was too busy trying to do my own thing. But even in Afghanistan, my mom, she sent me a little keyboard, and I'd be in there, rapping, and everyone got so sick of it, man. I, went out and started singing in the RG. But if I could put my feelings and my thoughts into something and make it great and have other people say, man, I love what you've been through. I've gone through a similar situation. To me, I'm using my negatives, turning them into positives, and people love positives.
So your inspiration comes from your trials and tribulations?
Oh, most definitely.
And so you're speaking from the heart, and I think that's what any great musician does, is writes what he knows and what he feels. And the good ones can convey that to where a mass audience goes, he's writing this song just about me. And I imagine you get quite a bit of that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I'm grateful for everybody who has, followed me, liked. We understand the importance of online social media. I'm sure both of you do. And, it's nice when people reach out to you and say, hey, thanks for the laugh. Thanks for being nice to my kid. Or, but I think the biggest thing is I've had people that when I go speak at a high school, elementary school, junior high and high school is my favorite, but I've been able to do, fly down to Mexico for conferences and shows and all over the place. But I think in junior high and high school that people, man, the kids are really trying to find themselves. And I have dozens and dozens of messages of kids that are suicidal and that wanted to kill themselves because, they thought this. I have a Lamborghini in one of my videos that I drive around in some nice cars. And so everyone thinks I own those, We have a nice vehicle, but not a Lamborghini. So I tell the kids that, it's just because Iron Man's Iron Man has the suit doesn't mean he's Iron Man. But because we're able to do different things to make us happy, whether it be having a nice car or doing a backflip, you got to do what makes you happy. And driving those kind of things, they feel like a reward, and it's nice to have other people comment on that. And when I do have it, I let kids sit in the vehicle, rev it up, and, I share that light with them.
So what is, do you have a sobriety date? I mean, do you remember that?
No, it was in 2009, 2010. I haven't really kept track. That was something that was kind of behind me, and, I just...
Well, the reason I ask is because some people, it's very important, their sobriety date. And some people go,
right.
The fact that I don't know it shows you how much it doesn't really matter to me, because what matters is that I'm sober now and moving forward.
Yeah.
Right, and I think in some ways it sounds like your story, instead of having a very specific rock bottom, which a lot of people do, and that leads to them remembering their sobriety date because of that, I think it sounds like what you're saying is you kind of have this incremental change in attitude and focus, going into war and coming home and going back to war and coming home, and having these incremental changes that sort of modified your thinking and your priorities as you got a little bit older, conversations with a judge, conversations with your wife, this band of friends trying to influence each other for the positive. And so it sort of makes sense to me that it was maybe more of a gradual process of leaving that substance abuse life behind you and taking yourself in a new direction. So I think unlike maybe a lot of the guests we have, that's a unique aspect to your story.
But I don't think it's really that uncommon. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
The reason why we have the guests that we do is because their rock bottom was so rocky, I guess, with that of
extreme.
Extreme. That that those are the ones that come through.
But I think it's great that people can listen to your story and realize I don't necessarily have to have some complete catastrophe in order to get that flash of insight that I need to change. I can gradually change over time. Mm-hmm. I can shift my own thinking without having a crisis, perhaps. But I mean, I'm not to say that you didn't have crises along the way. Wife wants to leave you. That's a crisis. Military says no thanks. That's kind of a crisis. So you're having them, but Hey, it's a unique way, and I'm sure it's more common than we know.
But I would hope it would become more common. That's what I really wanted to do with this podcast, is hopefully stop someone from hitting that rock bottom, from getting in a car and driving and realizing. Because when you are in your active addiction, as Ryan said, your brain is not thinking clearly. You're making and doing things that you normally would never do.
Right.
So if you can see these cracks in the wall, if you can see signs of, addiction really taking hold, if we can stop them from getting to that rock bottom, that would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And you can wake up in the morning and realize, like maybe you did, Ryan, that conversation with your brother was really rocked you.
Yeah,
and you can take that insight to change your own behavior.
Looking back on my addiction, I can tell you right now, I had those conversations with multiple friends. Yeah. I had that conversation with multiple family members, with employers, where they would sit me down and say, "Listen, are you okay?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good." And they would go, "Are you really okay?" Because they knew I wasn't. But I was not ready to admit that I wasn't okay and that I needed help. And I wish now, looking back, I would have stopped and said, "No, I'm not okay. I need help." Yeah. But it was too late. If you don't ask for help, you're not going to get it.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think many people who are in the throes of their addiction, make the mistake of thinking nobody really knows, so everybody knows, right? But number two, because of that, they're in that self-deluded state. They don't think they need help, and they don't ask for it.
And a lot of times there are the kids that are athletes and stars, and
I was on TV.
Yeah, people don't know. There's the reason why I'm here. Ryan Palmer, his family reached out to you. Their son Jeremy, man, he was an athlete, motocross rider, and he got caught up in the right stuff. His friends dumped his body. If they would have took him to the hospital, he would have possibly lived. That's who we're doing the music video for. Just a young athlete, Jeremy Palmer. Kid
well, let's
was
talk about that because you are doing something cool. First off, if people want to find your inspirational music and what you're doing, where do they go to find this?
YouTube, Ryan Stream. Just Google Ryan Stream. You'll see some more of my stories, some magazines that I was in. YouTube, I'm not huge at marketing, but hey, go to YouTube, watch these videos I've shot on the NASCAR
Spell your last
tracks.
name for people.
Ryan Stream, just like a river, Stream. Now, my whole goal was to do music, country music, piano music, and rap music, so even my kids can listen to. I've been able to shoot on Times Square, to riding camels in Mexico, to driving Lamborghinis, to shooting it with the Major League Baseball players, from the Dodgers to filming on a NASCAR track. I wanted to be so unique that all these kids, because I really want to promote goodness. I want to show them that, hey, there's good music and there's good people to follow. And I'm not the best guy to follow. I'm not the best singer. I'm not the best pianist. But I'm wanting to show them that it doesn't matter how good you are. Hard work beats talent any day.
I love that, and I think that message is so important. He has been talking about this beatboxing quite a bit, man.
Oh, he has sort of teasing us.
Yeah,
a little bit.
So I'm curious.
I know you beatbox a little.
Well, I'm not very good.
Hey,
just give me a little beatbox.
How about I rap instead of?
Okay, let's hear rap.
All right. Okay. So let's see. I'll rap about Afghanistan. This is the first rap I've ever written. Okay. It's been 6 months. Sometimes, man, I would like to get away. Oh, that's my newest one. Sorry. Okay, hang on. Here we go.
That's a sneak peek.
We just dropped it on this show.
We'll just do a different one.
Okay, here we go.
Every time that I turn on the news, I can find nothing new. Just a bunch of sadness and sickness. We the people sit and watch as a witness. I must have been motion sick or call me suspicious, but bad decisions, they equal missing Thanksgiving and Christmas. My question is, and forever was, do we fight for freedom or do we fight for greed? They tell us to stand up, but who do we stand up to? We are lied to, tricked, and constantly deceived. What victory can possibly be achieved? We fight over which bathrooms people can take a pee. Handouts over handguns, riots and race. We overlook the Constitution of the United States. So that's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Love it.
Dropping a little knowledge here on
there you
Project
go.
Recovery. Hey, I'm so excited to find out more about you, and I'll definitely go on a deep dive. Thank you very much for stopping by today, sharing your story. It's very inspirational, and I think a lot of youth and a lot of people are going to find some great insight into this.
Hey, real quick, if you don't mind, if I could just tell about my video real quick. I really wanted to give these awesome people a shout out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have so Jeremy Palmer, he's the one that overdosed, sadly, But this music video, we're going to be out at the Salt Flats, and I'm going to be in a white tuxedo, being like heaven, right? The kid that went to the afterlife. And he's saying, Dad, it's me, I'm up in heaven, after showing all the beautiful destinations on earth. We have a chrome piano, grand piano out there I'm going to be playing with freestyle motocross national champion Sean Nilsson doing a backflip over me while I'm rapping and playing the piano. Wow. And then we have actor Bob Sager, sorry, I missed
Saget?
Yeah, but
Bob Saget, the comedian?
No, but he's awesome, man. He's an actor, and he's going to play Jesus Christ. So at the end of the video, it's like, Dad, look at me now, and then I'm walking to this guy that looks like Jesus. And then when I'm talking about heaven, I'm going to be showing some 550 bull elk that Chip has out around Manti. So I'm going to be feeding these big elk, saying, Dad, look what heaven's like. So, I mean, it's tricky, but I promise you it's going to be an amazing video.
There's a lot going on in that video.
Yeah, when does it drop, as the kids would say?
We're going to start filming it on Friday, so I would imagine in the next month or so it's going to hopefully be
And do you
out.
have a title for the song?
It's called I Wonder, and Bob Sagers was his name. Sorry, bro.
I know, I love it. All right, what is your takeaway, Matt?
Well, I just love I love anybody who wants to dedicate their life to inspiring others.
Appreciate
it. And your life started off without many advantages other than perhaps the love that you felt from your family. And I think that's wonderful to share that message with young kids who are in the place you were at the beginning of your life, and showing them how they don't have to stay there. They can make what they want out of their life.
Absolutely.
So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate it. Thank you both for doing that. You both also do that with the show.
And this just reaffirms that everyone's story's different, and no one's addiction looks the same. But there is greatness that can come out if you listen to Ryan's Dreamer, where hard work and dedication can take you to where you need to go. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're listening to Project Recovery, a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.